The truth where Ron patiently waits for the internet to say it's okay. And you know what he does? He waits. Why am I talking about myself in third person? That's very weird. Very weird. I don't know what that's about. It's very strange, and I apologize, but you guys know me. Until I see it, it's not real. That's how I roll. I have seen it. I have seen it. I have seen it. I have seen it, and it is good. Awesome. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. If you're in my time zone, it's still morning. This is my morning show. This is Get Your News On with Ron. Shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. First of all, our friends over at ZT.com, ZHITEA.com. Their tea kind of rules. You can get their tea wholesale now because of the pandemic. It's a local tea shop in Austin, Texas, run by a lefty and friend of the show, Jeffrey. Pick up some of their tea. I've been obsessed with the white peach Chinese tea. It's phenomenal. Also the raspberry pecan, one of my personal favorites. And they have this smoky Japanese black tea that's absolutely phenomenal. But check out their website. Makes a great holiday gift. You get the idea. ZT.com, ZHITEA.com. Also, our friends over at triageoil.com, TRIAGE oil.com. They make topical pain oil that I use all the time. I use it on my neck. I use it on my heel. I messed up my heel. I still don't know how, but I did something to my heel. My heel was injured somehow. A heel injury. Very strange and hurts a bunch. But I have one of those. The oil did wonders. Check it out. Shout out to Trendy Nay and his show educating people about cannabis, triageoil.com. All right. Without further ado, I am very excited to bring in my guest today. And I told her husband is helping her out with tech today, which is awesome. Her husband took the week off to help her out because she is running for office. And I mentioned this to him, and I'll mention this again when I bring her in. Here at Get Your News On with Ron, usually when people are running for office and they're candidates for office, they reach out to me about coming on the show. They're like, hey, we want to come on your show, which is great. There have only been 2 occasions, and as long as I've been doing this show, where it's the other way around. And I reached out to the person and I said, hey, will you come on my show? Because I really want to make sure I talk to you, especially before the election. And this is one of those 2 cases. There's only been 2 cases in the history of the show. This is one of those 2 cases. I heard this woman speak on a Zoom meeting. I heard her speak, and I was very impressed by what she had to say, very impressed by how she broke down the issues. And she was just, it's one of those things. I was just kind of like listening in my living room, just sort of, listening. And then I was cooking dinner simultaneously, and I kind of dropped what I was doing when she was speaking because she really had a lot of very, very valuable things to say. She is running for Assembly District 64 in California. Please welcome to the show, Fatima Iqbal-Zubair. Fatima, what's up?
Nice to be here, Ron. Thanks for having me.
Did I get your name right?
Yeah. I mean, some
Okay.
people say Fatima, some people say Fatty, some say Fatima. I'm okay with anything. I've lived all over the world, and so it's many ways of saying my name. So I relate to
All
all
right.
of them. It's fine. Yeah.
Well, I wrote a little phonetic sheet for myself to help me along the way, but
Okay.
yeah. I hope I did good. But so Fatima, I'm really excited to get into your campaign and to get into your story. But first, we'll start out with something very topical in the news. Uh, Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah.
Amy Coney Barrett. They sworn her in. She is the new Supreme Court justice. That's you're probably a little hungover this morning from all the celebration you did last night. Are
No.
you? Have you recovered?
Uh, no, my heart is very heavy for the country,
Yeah.
for how how they rushed this. I believe it's the fastest, Supreme Court nomination in about 45 years or something like that. It's just very undemocratic. It's very unfortunate for our country. But, I'm someone that no matter what happens, I hold hope in the people in this country. Our systems are not perfect, but I really hold hope in the people. And I know we'll do the right thing come November. And I think there's ways, that the Constitution allows us to get past this, to uphold some of these rights. So I'm hopeful, Ron. I'm choosing to, kind of stay in that hope, because I feel like that's what our country's about. It's about moving forward, and it's always about, achieving justice. And I do believe we'll get there. And, sorry if I'm not continuing to stay on this depressed thing, but that's just not who I am.
No, that I don't.
I try to find, I mean, I don't think this is the be all end all. I think there's a way to get around this. There's a way we can uphold our rights. And I think it starts with voting in November. So please don't vote for Trump. Please vote for Biden and Harris. It's very important. I was a strong Bernie supporter, but I encourage those in the swing states. You especially have a role to play in this, and please do the right thing, because hopefully this is a reminder of, what can happen if Trump gets elected. There is really no stopping. So, but we can do the right thing in November. So I just encourage everyone to get out there and vote, or get out the vote. Yeah.
Well, see, I share some of your optimism, not all of it. I don't have very much optimism federally, no matter what happens. I really don't. I'm not telling people what to do one way or another. That's their personal choice. But my optimism lies in activism, and my optimism in electoral politics does not fall on the federal level. It falls on the local level and the state level. It falls with people like you. That's where my optimism is. I can't, I think that the Democrats could have done more to try to stop this. They did absolutely nothing. They did. So many things. They could have threatened a shutdown. They could have just rallied public outcry around the whole impeachment thing. Remember, they impeached Donald Trump?
Yeah.
They impeached. Yeah. Now it was a sham because they didn't look at a lot of his actual financial crimes. Why? Because they're complicit in the same stuff.
Right.
But nonetheless, it happened. And for what? They didn't even try to use it in this case. They could have done that. They could have done every stalling tactic that they had in their arsenal. Nancy Pelosi said herself, well, we're gonna use all the arrows in our whatever she put it. Turns out there were no arrows. They did nothing. They did absolutely nothing, so that they can continue to hold this over people's heads as a fear tactic.
You know what I think it is, Ron? I think it's that you said it exactly right. I think they are part of the system that isn't working for so many. And, they'll go to a certain point, but they won't go far enough, right? They won't go as far as people are going in the streets, as far as activists are going, as far as, independent media is going. They're not going to go as far, because the truth is this: they are part of the system.
They're part of the system, and it's benefiting them.
Yes.
That's the thing. They're part of the system, and it's benefiting them. And it's, and I don't want this to be like the entirety of the interview, but I feel like I feel like we need an option. Like I feel like electorally, we need a completely different option. I understand that people like you who are running now, you have little choice other than, trying to enter and trying to, basically sneak in. Really, it's like the progressives that make it, it's like they snuck in, like somebody, because they spent over, the Democratic establishment is who I'm referring to when I say they spent over $50 million making sure grassroots candidates like yourself don't get into office. That's not, we need something completely outside of the system, and I'm hoping by 2022 we have it. That's my hope. Electorally, and then of course I have a lot of hopes outside of electoral politics. But yeah, it's just so mind blowing. Where it's like, here's something that's extremely fascinating. Five out of the 9 Supreme Court justices have been appointed by presidents that the majority of voters didn't want. George W. Bush appointed 2. Now, he did it in his second term. Yeah, but his first term wasn't valid. Yeah. He wasn't a legitimate presidency. It was illegal what happened in 2000. Or, pretty much illegal. It shouldn't have happened that way.
Yeah.
And Al Gore did nothing. Again, Democrats doing nothing. Al Gore did nothing. Al Gore actually mocked people who were getting kicked off voter rolls. If you remember that footage, he laughed in their fucking face after their rights were just trampled. And George W. Bush became president. So, these are 2, and then Donald Trump, of course, lost the popular vote by 3 million.
Right.
So these are 2 presidents that most voters didn't even want. They have appointed 5 justices to a court, which, first of all, isn't a court at all. It's just a political football. It's a total scam. It's a total scam. And of course, establishment Democrats are already saying, we're not going to expand it. We're not going to change lifetime appointments. So, it's really up to, folks like you who are really trying to, who are running on actual change.
Yeah.
Not like BS. Oh, we'll say some nicer things. We'll tweet to be the ministry of appeasement. But really, we like this status quo because our gravy train keeps rolling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think whenever you kept saying that we need to abolish the electoral college, like, we need to
Get rid of it.
Yeah. Like, I think, that's why when I talk about a lot of my policies, I don't just, say the buzzwords of Medicare for All, Green New Deal. I understand what's not helping us get there. And it's not, it's to address climate change, to address, really having a democracy. We have to like, what's the word, upend, if I'm saying it right, the right word, like, destroy the entire system, and recreate it, essentially, because it's inhibiting a lot of these policies that we need for people, from housing to environment, to schools. It is part of the same system where money is just concentrated in the hands of the few, and it frankly benefits both parties, I would say, equally. If you look at the amount of super PACs, if you look at the amount of money given to, both parties, it is in both parties. So yeah, and eventually we need to get to a system where we have more than two parties as well. It's not normal to have two polarizing parties, and what is it? Something like 40% of Americans are independent. Who's speaking to them?
And
No
two
one's
parties,
speaking to them.
two parties who have the same owners, as you pointed out.
Right,
Two parties
right,
who have the same
right,
owners. See, this is the type of interviewer I am, Fatima. You
right.
started with, well, I do have hope, I do have confidence, and then you got to, we got to destroy the system, and I'm like, yeah, that's the person I want to vote for. There it is.
You got it out of me, Ron. You got it out of me. That's who I am too. That's who I am too. So,
no, I know it is.
yeah,
That's why I wanted to have you. What you said. So let's get into you now. What you said that really struck me, where I just, and I'm not trying to like be disparaging of anyone who runs for office. There were a lot of people who said some great things, but you really stuck out to me because you started bringing up clean water. Mm-hmm. You started bringing up what's going on right in your community. So, unpack some of that for me.
Yeah. I think a lot of these things are what is so basic to being, a moral society, and, we heard Bernie saying these things. We heard him talking about these things, but it's different when you're actually with a community and experiencing some of these things. It's like, this is their everyday life. So, not having clean water in, a few communities in my district, and not just in my district, in other communities in California, is an issue in the wealthiest state. And Ron, this is the thing, the solution, it is not a Green New Deal level solution. It's literally like change the pipes under some of these buildings. It's just not being done. And I'm sorry to say it, it's because of classism and racism. They don't value certain communities over others. That's just the truth of it. And when you look at similarly some of the toxic sites, at my school, there's a group, that's doing some Spanish language preferred outreach, who I just talked to this morning before this interview, who said the reason I'm supporting, your campaign is because when they're doing redevelopment in Watts, there's lead, in the soil that's being kind of thrown in the air and we're breathing in. And this has been happening for years.
Let me interject really quick here.
Right.
But before you continue, give people a little bit of background. Where is, I know I said AD-64, but where is that exactly? What is your community?
Right. So my district is pretty much the South LA area, especially, I'm sure we're going to get into, the police brutality issues, but there were, I always say it because it's important to remember, we don't want to forget the young men that get shot. There were 3 men of color that got shot in my district just in the past 2 or 3 months, which is unfortunate. My district is South LA. It includes Watts, Compton, Wilmington, Carson, Willowbrook, a little bit of the South Bay, a little bit of Gardena, North Harbor, Gateway, Carson, where I live. And then it goes all the way down, like I said, to Wilmington, North Long Beach area. But it's majority people of color. It's 90% people of color. It's about 25% Black and about, 65% Latino and, a small amount of Asian and white population. But that's the makeup of my district. And I'd love to go into, Ron, if this is a good time for it, some of the issues surrounding my district. Is that okay if I?
This is the time. Okay. This is the time, Fatima. Yeah. You're on.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't. Yeah. So that is those are the communities in my district, but there are a lot of issues in terms of what is happening across California. I'm going to keep saying this because my district is one district, but it is this whole issue in our entire system in California with what we're doing with the wealth that we have in our state, which is we are just really concentrating in the hands of the billionaires and the corporations. And so my district has a quarter of the refineries. We have the highest rate of drilling in LA County. Um, we have 4 times the eviction rate of many communities in LA County. Here's as a teacher, this is also what, is really surprising and really disheartening with the state of our education system. Only half of my district have high school degrees. So now think about what type of jobs they have. Are they more likely to get sick from COVID? What sort of upward mobility opportunities do they have? And when you look at the college grads in the district, it's only 11.7%. I mean, I taught in a school. I always say I taught the smartest kids in the world, and that's why I really fell in love with the community, because I saw students that worked so hard, that did everything right, but the system was stacked against them. In terms of making sure they had the resources to even get through high school, making sure they had teachers that didn't leave on them, that were making sure they had the resources to do well on the SATs. I want to ban standardized tests. That's a whole other issue that really discriminates against kids. But
when I was
yeah,
in junior high, I had a teacher that said that, and now I don't think you mentioned this, but you are
yeah,
a teacher, you are an
right.
educator.
Yes, I'm an educator in Watts.
And yeah, no, I remember in junior high, I had a teacher that actually said that. We were doing the whole standardized test thing.
Right,
And
right.
she just goes, these shouldn't be a thing.
Yes,
We have to do this, but this sucks.
yeah.
And I was so like, wow. And she was, of course, one of the first teachers, in my lifetime that taught me to think for myself. Go figure. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, she sounds like a great teacher because it's true. Yeah, it's true. I tried to do that. I told my kids the same thing. Like, look, to change the system, you have to beat the system. And I said, look, you have to go through these things that are unfair. You have to probably work 5 times as hard as a privileged student in another community, who has a college educated parents. And I say this because I love all of you. Like, that's what I would tell them. I was like, I want you to know what you're up against, but I know that if you do these things and you get there, you can be a leader in your community and change your community. And, that's what my kids did, and, I started a robotics team there, and I saw, the change that a program I created. I mean, it was the first robotics team in Watts, but in the grand scheme of education in California, it was, not a huge program, but we got funding for it. But the change that made was that all my kids got into a 4-year college in a community which is with only a 3% college grad rate, right? So it clearly shows that if kids are given resources, they have the means and the support, and they'll have the inspiration, to go. And a lot of kids told me to get into college and to go to college. And a lot of kids told me in the college interviews, we talked about robotics. We talked about, staying late coding. We talked about, the relationships we built. We talked about the leadership skills we learned. And that just melted my heart because, it was just one program. And the sad part is, Ron, this is the sad part. When I had that team, and the team is still alive. We're called the Terawatts. So at Terawatts6904, we're not super active on social media, but please follow us. Had some media on us. But what was sad is because my husband's involved in robotics, I was able to get my team grants. We heard of so many teams starting around us in Compton and, Southgate that shut down after the first year, or that we provided space for because the resources weren't there. And it's a microcosm, that's a microcosm example of what's happening, right, to education in our country, in our state, in our communities, is that you have kids that want these programs, you have parents that want these programs, you have teachers that want these programs, but you're coming up against so many roadblocks that are saying, no, you can't do it because we don't have the money. No, you can't do it because honestly, teachers should get paid for some of these things. They're not getting paid enough, first of all. But the commitment that it takes to work in a marginalized, they should, because thankfully, I'll be honest, and this is me checking my privilege. I was able to, stay after school with my students, do all these things because I was able to afford childcare for my child. My husband's an engineer, and so I was able to give a lot of my free time. But what do you do about, I knew so many teachers at my school who were trying to make rent, who had to work another job, how do you expect that teacher to go the extra mile when they need to in a community like that? I don't blame them because they already are, but it's just like, I mean, the system's just not fair for teachers. It's not fair for students. Um, and honestly, I just want to end with this because it's really important for any, Republicans listening or independents listening or anyone against public education, because
I don't know if you'll get any of that here. You might.
But here's an
A lot
argument.
of people know me by now.
But here's an argument people on the left could use when they talk to their friends who are on the other side, right? Okay, this is really important because honestly, this is going to help our economy. The way we educate our kids, the amount of kids that have a college education is going to determine the type of jobs that are filled. My husband's an engineer. I'm a science teacher. I know as a science teacher, I was able to get a job like this. If you're an engineer, you're able to just get a job because 80% of the jobs in the next decade, Ron, are going to be in STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, right? And a lot of those jobs, not all, but, they take either post high school training in terms of trade schools, which I'm for. Those should be free as well. They take some sort of training, whether it's a college education or training, but it is so important to educate our kids because it's going to build our economy in California. I mean, it's just a win-win, right? And the other thing I want to mention, and we didn't bring this up, when people talk about, the Green New Deal, I want to reiterate that it is a job creator. And this is why we also need to educate our kids. It kind of is an intersection of, if we want to meet climate change and get the smartest, most brightest innovators in every community. Because Ron, here's the thing. If we don't treat a kid in Watts like we treat a kid everywhere else, there might be the next scientist there. There might be the next scientist in Compton, in Southgate, in Willowbrook. And we are missing out as a state, as a country, as a global world. I mean, we're missing out. So I think it's just advantages, I'm not just talking about this as, oh my gosh, those poor students. No, this is good for all of us from any angle you look at, to educate our kids, for us, for our economy, for our country and for the world. So I just want to say it's going to help all of us in every way.
Well, just looking at it as big picture as possible and as broad as possible. If you want to have any type of successful democratic experiment at any level, you need a highly educated populace. I mean, they go hand in hand. It's a no-brainer. And when you break it down at a micro level, it's very obvious. So, and one of the things I found too, a lifetime ago, I taught community college some on the side.
Okay.
So I have a little bit of experience.
I love that.
I taught speech comm and public speaking. So not quite as I chose a much more lucrative field than the sciences.
No, Ron, I wanted to tell you that's really important because a lot of people going to community college, first of all, can't afford 4-year college. Community colleges actually have, I want to shout out the community college teachers because they have some of the best teachers. And also what you taught is important, to create confidence. I mean, public speaking is so important. So don't downplay that.
No, I was just poking fun at the humanities. It's all in fun. But one of the things I learned, and and I know like you were dealing with high school, so these students are a little bit older, and of course because it was, I had students of all walks. I had some students that were older than me. There were a lot of non-traditional students too. But the one thing that I learned, especially true within like the 18 to 22 range, and everybody really, when you set a certain bar, students want to meet it. Yes. They want to meet it. Like this whole, and I'll be honest, I had a lot of guidelines given to me by the department that I ignored deliberately. And I said, we are going to follow none of this because this is bullshit, quite frankly. And then what was my reward? They offered me a full-time job. And I don't know if they knew that or not. I was like, I don't know if you know I'm breaking every single rule you gave to me. I follow nothing. I mean, this textbook you gave me is a freaking decoration. Half my students didn't even bother buying one, and I'm glad. And I just did it my way. And and they were like, we want you to teach full time. Now, here's something else we can talk about with the salaries of teachers. Like a real other quick, for instance, I didn't accept that job because I made a better salary as an opening act on the road doing comedy than I would have as a full-time adjunct teacher.
Yeah.
That's telling. And I always use that example. I'm like, guys, I wasn't even a headlining act at that point. I was an opener playing small markets. I made a better salary, and let's be honest, it was a little more fun doing stand-up on the road than I would have as a full-time adjunct teacher.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's ridiculous. I mean, this is also another thing that's not normal in our country, that we don't value our teachers like as other communities, other countries do.
Mhm.
And I think it goes hand in hand, to reiterate the point, that we need a highly educated, as you mentioned, Ron, work population to have a democracy. And what are we doing? That's why I honestly think, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. This is part of the thing where we don't want a highly educated democracy, because you know what? It's good for, bad policies, it's good for bad systems. And so we keep it that way. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't want to out my husband here, but he's an engineer. When he gets a bonus, at some point, it's as much as my annual salary as a teacher.
Mhm.
Isn't that sad? And that's what made me think, I'm like, I work weekends, I work really hard. I work probably more hours you do in the day. Not that he doesn't work hard, he does, but it's just
Sure.
ridiculous how our society values certain things and not others. And I just think it has to be equal. That's all, not equal, but we have to understand where our morals lie, right? It speaks a lot to where our morals lie. We right now don't value educating our kids. I mean, we simply don't. We also don't value, to bring this up, we don't value our immigrant population, because the jobs they do honestly put food on our table, lets us go to the grocery store and, get those fresh fruits and vegetables. And we don't value that. And I think it speaks to, it speaks to that we're a society that kind of, and not to, I love what you do, Ron. I'm not trying to down like Hollywood or comedy, because we need that too. But I'm just saying, and I think you would agree that we need to put more value on that. And who knows, maybe if teaching was a 6-figure job, we would get the best teachers, and they would not feel as stressed out all the time. They would feel like they're getting adequately compensated. I mean, so I just think we have to really think about what we value in society,
I always said, what if cities treated teachers the way they treat cops and vice versa? Like, what if it was like, we were thinking about cutting education, but the teachers might get mad. The teachers might get mad and quit, and we can't have that. So I'm sorry. Half our budget is going to have to go to education again this year. And then cops, you're on your own for buying your own weapons. That's
right.
I wonder if there'd be less police brutality if they had to buy their own bullets. I don't know. Maybe not. But it's a thought.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right. I just think it's literally what we value. And I think when you said it, it was funny. Like, imagine we told cops that, like, got to get your own car, got to get your own supplies. I mean, but yeah, you're absolutely right. But instead, what we're seeing is cops that are really well equipped, to really brutalize communities. We see the opposite, right? What if we well equip our teachers and our classrooms, and have all the technology? I mean, I know one barrier I had at Watts was I was always wishing that my kids had their own iPad. I'll have their own tablet, not to, just shout out Apple, but just, just general like tablet, not trying to, plug in Apple here, but
you said your husband's an engineer. Now I'm questioning everything. What are you really trying to do?
I know I'm trying to, no, but like, have their own tablet. Like, imagine how much more engaging, like when you meet kids at what really interests them, right? Of course, I tried to always do culturally well, like you did. I never used a textbook, but I always knew that I wanted more for my kids. I wanted to be able to give them technology and do these things that I was simply restricted. At my school, we had to rent out laptop carts, and so there were times I couldn't get a laptop cart. And it would, so anyway, but yeah, yeah.
Well, let me ask you, I want to get on to some other policies that are important to you, but first I want to stay on education for a little bit, because you have a science background. Mm-hmm. So, how many times a night should I be crying myself to sleep? No, I'm just kidding. My actual question.
Did you not like science? Did you not like science?
Oh, no. My motivation, I mean, because you know how fucked we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what I meant by that. Yeah. No, so my actual question is, what role do you think technology is going to play in mitigating climate change? Because I think it's inevitable. It's going to have to take a big one. And I don't just mean, solar and wind and stuff like that. I mean, like, they're going to have to come up with some technological solutions to what we've done.
100%. 100%. I mean, I think, okay, this is what I want to, I'm just going to go to the end goal. I'm not there because I'm not running for Congress,
Hmm.
but this is what I think we should do. Do you know how we look at our military budget every year? And we consistently up it and up it and up it. And by the way, Democrats and Republicans vote for it and they approve it. And then all these defense contractors get the money. And what is the money for? Let's make this plane go faster. Let's make something for our wars overseas, right? Wrong.
Let's make sure those Halliburton stocks are good.
Right, right. Let's make sure, we can have a laser that can see 5 million times as far. Like, why? How is that helping anyone? And so what I want to do, what I envision, and this is the end goal. I'll start by what we can do kind of at a smaller level, but I really think this is an urgency that we need to address it with. We need to take that budget and honestly put it into solving climate change. So what I mean is that our defense contractors need to become climate contractors, right? I'm not saying we don't need to defend our country. I understand every nation needs some element of safety and defense. Okay, that's fine. But the amount that we are putting into the military and into creating planes that can go faster and lasers that can just look a little further is useless in my mind, right? We should be building technology that could suck carbon out of the air because right now we're in a downward spiral. Honestly, I'm not trying to be negative again, but
it's the reality.
It's the reality. It's happening so fast in the rate we're still producing carbon globally. We have to think of what can we do to get rid of carbon in the air? What can we do to drastically change the infrastructure in our country to get clean water to everyone, right? It's every part of the aspect. But we can do this because we have the best and brightest. Like, I'm not trying to sound like Trump here, but as a country, we have innovators in here.
Exactly who you reminded me of.
I know. I was like, I know I'm going to sound like America.
You're talking about how we need to get carbon out of the air and we need to do something about climate change. That's Trump says that all the time.
No, not that. But I'm saying, I mean, we're a nation of immigrants. But I'm saying in our country, we attract, right, the best. I mean, we do. And I'm grateful for that. And that's why, my family immigrated here. It was literally like my dad wanted us to get a good education and my mom. And like, I value that as an immigrant, I do. So I'm saying we need to use all that creative energy, honestly, like all the intelligence in all these communities and the folks that are currently working in the defense industry and say, okay, your projects are going to switch now. We need to address climate change. That's not happening right now, Ron, because of the lobby, because of the oil lobby, because of the natural gas lobby, because of, Wall Street. It's all related. The Koch brothers, I mean, they don't want that to happen. They want us to keep funding the military because wars make money for them.
Yes.
We got to just change our priorities. And like, I know I probably sound crazy right now saying this, but it's what we need to do to address it. And now locally, part of the reason I'm running now on a state level, honestly, I'm going to say it, California is not progressive. We're not. We're really not in the way we address this. What, Ron?
I said you're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, we're really not, because we've increased fracking permits drastically. We haven't closed down Aliso Canyon and Poseidon and all these, major sites that are making people sick. We have unclean water. I'll say it again, in the richest state.
Fifth largest GDP in the world.
Right. And
fifth largest GDP in the world.
Concentrated. I mean, you see it, Ron, even in COVID. Who is getting wealthier and profiting off of COVID? I mean, honestly, it makes me sick to my stomach that we have a state that is valuing, folks that already have loads of money and making them richer in COVID and kicking people out of their homes and, getting their jobs lost. And it's ridiculous. And, in terms of climate change, if we care, if we had a moral government, we would be working day and night as legislators and not sleeping, honestly, because it's that urgent. Like, I want to get up there to start working the next day. I'm not just saying this to get myself elected. Like, that's why why else would a teacher? I was known only in Watts, Ron. People didn't know my name, but I felt the urgency of the movement, of myself, of living 2 miles from a refinery, of not having clean water. Even when I, as a teacher, wanted to make my tea at school, I would not go to the tap. I would have to go get filtered water. That's what made me think, why are the teachers drinking filtered water and our kids are drinking this every day? I mean, I'm running because it's a disgrace. And I'm not going to wait 2 more years to wait my turn. Someone told me at the beginning of this campaign, when I started in the primary, right? Some sort of consultant in the beginning, not the ones I have now, but like, oh, are you sure you want to run? Do you want to wait? Get your name more out there? No, I don't want to wait because our state is doing awful right now in treating its working class. I don't want to wait. And if I really felt like we had a chance, without getting our movement, it's not just me, right? Our voices up there, I wouldn't be running. But I really feel like we don't have that urgency up there. And look, we have a few good ones up in Sacramento. I can count them on one hand, though. That's it. Even if I can complete, five of, I don't know if I can name five. Can think of like two or three right now. But that's not enough. And honestly, like we have to not go up there. And the way we achieve this is we don't go up there and say, I'm part of the Democratic Party and I'm going to protect these. You know what's funny, Ron? There are legislators up there that know that Gibson, for example, my opponent, is not doing the right thing. They know that, but you don't hear them calling them out. They protect their own. They protect their own. Why are you more allegiant to the party than to who you're supposed to represent? What a concept. But
because
that's what
you want to keep your job. I mean, they want to keep their job. They want to keep the apple cart going. And it really is. I mean, the Democratic establishment and the Republicans do it too.
Yeah.
It's just with the Democrats, they have to be a little more sneaky about it because they're supposed to represent working people. That's the lie people are told. The Republicans, they don't need to be subtle about it.
Ron,
like,
can I say something? Sorry, I don't mean to go on a rant, but all these things, okay. And I'm just gonna put this out there, right? They weren't putting a lot of money into my opponent's race until they saw I was a real threat. And I heard through the grapevine that once they see you as the real threat, the Black Caucus up there will start putting in money to keep. I want to bring this up, to keep, as my opponent is a Black man, to keep him there. And to me, I've talked to, so many folks. I worked in Watts, so many Black leaders in my community. And this is not my voice right now, but they have said they're sick of identity politics. They know that people that look like them don't necessarily represent them, and this is not me saying it. This is them telling me this and me saying that. So I think that's just a disgrace, especially if you are part of a community that's being marginalized right now. Wouldn't you want to have justice for your community? Wouldn't that be the most important thing? Shouldn't we be going beyond identity politics? I mean, I think the people know that, but I just feel like the establishment right now doesn't understand that, because if they really cared about the Black and brown community, they would want policies that they're asking for, not even that I'm asking for, that they're asking for.
See, I actually think it's a little more sinister than that. I think and I'm not pointing at like a local, for instance, but I think generally, looking at it broadly, they do understand that, because what they're doing is not just identity politics. I mean, identity politics on its own is not a bad thing. That just means like different communities are represented, and people in that community represent their community. That's not a bad thing. What's happening is identity politics is being weaponized for dishonest means, because they're just saying, well, just because this person looks like you, that automatically means they have your best interest at heart. Well, that's not always true. That's not always true. People can be, deceptive, and people can, work for the corporations regardless of their skin color or background. That's not the be all and end all. And that's weaponizing identity politics for dishonest means.
Yeah. And I think that's manipulating voters. I mean, thankfully, I think, we had a mailer sent out that said, I'm not from the community. Like I live here, my community.
And you're a teacher there.
I'm a teacher here. And honestly, I'll go out and say it, my opponent has an address here, but his neighbors have told me, I'll just say it, they've never seen him here. And it's true. It's what the neighbors are telling me when I canvassed, and so, I mean, I live here. I mean, I've been quarantined in my home in Carson. I mean, if people want to come see me, I'm here, so it's like, and I worked in Watts, 15 minutes away in my district. And so that really hurts, because I really love my district so much. And to be made to feel like an outsider is really sad. And I want to say maybe it's a little xenophobic, because I'm Muslim and I wear hijab, and he's trying to use that, but honestly, part of why I wanted to live in Carson, I'm just going to shout out some love to my community right now, is the diversity of it. There's not many communities, Ron, in LA that are not redlined and you know what I'm talking about, but Carson, right now, all my neighbors, I have one neighbor that's Latino, one neighbor that's Black, one that's white, one that's Filipino. And it's beautiful. That's why my husband and I wanted to live in this house, because there's not many places we found like this, and that makes me so happy. I can walk out every day and just, see people from all walks of life. I love that about Carson. I love that about my community, and I think he shouldn't use that, because it's a beautiful, our community is it's multicultural, and that's what I like about it. And so I don't know what he's trying to say with that, but anyway.
Well, I in full disclaimer, I don't know anything about your opponent. I'm not familiar. So, I'll just put that out there that I don't know anything about him. But, what have you found going door to door? I mean, how has that experience been?
Oh my gosh, I miss it right now in COVID because we can't
Hmm.
do much of that because of just safety. But I learned so much. When I started, I knew a lot about Watts and not as much as the leaders that were there for decades. But just in my work as a teacher and looking at the environmental justice issues and educational justice issues, I fell in love with my community. But really, I use this word love a lot wrong because I think we need a politics of love. So I know it sounds weird, but I just feel like that's what I feel. I need to say it. I literally, it made me fall in love with the district because in a sense of like, and I say this, Ron, because when if you have someone we love in our life, right, we would do anything for them, right? And I think that's what I got in my heart. So it's love. It's really love. Because when I went door to door and people shared their stories and were so vulnerable, I heard a woman who had drilling happen next to her home and said she came out, showed me a letter, said, "Look, I'm trying to fight against it. I hope something happens." I went to another home where there was a baby, the door was cracked open, and there was again drilling happening next to them, and the dad, was saying, "Yeah, we've been fighting against this for years. Nothing's happening." And me thinking how this child is going to grow up. I mean, it just changes your complete perspective when you meet people at their homes and they tell you their everyday experiences and you realize that they've lived with it for so long and it's become kind of, unfortunately, it's not that they accept it, but it's just been their reality. And that breaks my heart because I'm often like, no, this is not your reality. Like we can fight this, and they find hope when I say that, but they've been told for so long, this is your reality. We can't do anything with these refineries. I mean, they were here first. This is what they've been told. And it's so sad. It's like you're literally telling people, I'm sorry, your kids are going to get sick. That's what you're saying to them. They're going to get high rates of cancer and asthma, and there's nothing we can do about it. Are you kidding me? There is something you can do about it. There are zoning laws. There are ways we can hold the refineries accountable. There are things we can ban legislatively. We can ban neighborhood drilling. We can
Hmm.
create a buffer zone. So that is bullshit. I'm sorry. It is bullshit because no, you just want to keep getting your money and you're okay with your community getting sick. And this is just my opponent. This is some of the city council people representing the district too, by the way. It's not just my opponent. And that is just inhumane. That's all it is. I can't say better. It's inhumane. It's
Yeah.
deceptive. It's inhumane. And I don't know how these people sleep at night. I really don't because I would not be able to. I'd be struck with so much guilt if that's what I told someone. Like, there's nothing I can do when I do have power to do. Like, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I did that.
And it is so exhausting,
Yeah.
just so painfully exhausting, watching Gavin Newsom
Mm.
pose with an electric car charger, saying, "Oh, we're gonna ban it all by 2035." Which, of course, that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's bad. Of course,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
But simultaneously, he approved how many well permits during the
Yeah.
same time?
I want to say it's almost 40 or 50 or
It's
more.
like
I
40.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's crazy.
And it is just getting so exhausting where it's like, well, what are you really doing to help these communities? We're told that California is some progressive utopia. Meanwhile, in Southern California, in Los Angeles, there's still drilling going on in the county. Drilling for what? And it's been exposed years ago that this stuff is complete nonsense. Whenever someone tells you, oh, well, it's for our energy needs here domestically. No, it's not. That's a lie. That's a lie.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of that stuff, which I mean, it's like somebody I forget, Stephen Merchant. No, I forget the guy's name, but he was running for office in Florida. He made the best analogy to fracking that I ever heard. He's like, it's like blowing up a human being to try to get them to fart. That's what fracking really is, because it,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
does, like, what it produces is just next to nothing. Half of it, well, pretty much all of it goes overseas. So all fracking does, it gives a couple crappy temporary jobs that are environmentally hazardous and wrecks a community, and it pads the pockets of a couple CEOs. That's all it does.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
all it does. And even if it was actually, meeting our needs domestically, which it's not anyway, but even if it was, well, it's time to say, hey, at what cost is it meeting our needs domestically?
Ron,
It's time to get
any
off of
right.
foreign fuels.
To me, anytime something you're doing is making someone sick, don't do it.
Exactly.
What a concept. Don't
Exactly.
do it. Just don't do it. It's not the right decision. When
Right.
we have alternatives to getting our energy, we have
Yes.
alternatives. So why do it? And yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, exactly. It's just like, even if this was doing what they lie and tell us it is, it's still not worth it. It's
hmm
making people sick. It's messing with water. You know what you don't mess with? Water. It's one of those things. You don't mess with it, especially
you
in a
don't mess with it.
place
Yeah,
that never gets rain.
water's life. I mean, it is life. And
It
Ron, I
is.
want to just point out that in California, in the state legislature, we have a supermajority in both houses. We have supposedly a Democratic governor, right? Who's right. And I say supposedly, no disrespect, Governor Newsom, but like, we need, if being a Democrat to me means being for the people. And that's not always happening. I mean, the legislature's case, in his case, in how he's, the decisions he's making. I mean, we had this buffer zone bill. So Ron, okay, not even ending neighborhood drilling. We had the chance to say, you know what? Okay, fine. You can keep drilling. Just don't do it near a home. That's literally what it said. Okay. It was Democrats that blocked that bill. It was Democrats that dehumanized, and frontline environmental activists that came and spoke and said their experience and said, do your homework to them, which is so disrespectful and demeaning. It was Democrats that blocked this bill. And I just want folks to know that, that in our state, at least in our local politics, I'm going to bring this up, just kind of focusing on local politics. The issue in California isn't that Republicans, I'll be honest, because we have a majority of Democrats here, Democrats who are in office. The issue is that the Democrats are the issue, is that they are bought out and they are at face value saying they're progressive, and in closed doors, taking the money of developers, taking the money of oil refineries and doing their bidding. And maybe doing one photo op, like you mentioned, or doing something, but it's not near enough to meet the urgency. It's not near aggressive enough to meet the urgency. But, and I think that's part of the reason I'm running. A lot of other progressive politicians across LA and the state are running, because we're just frustrated at this false, narrative that we're progressive. And, so yeah. So I just wanted to mention that. And last thing, Texas, a red state, even has that rule where you can't drill next. They have a buffer zone. Texas.
Well, I mean, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I grew up in Western Pennsylvania near the Marcellus Shale,
right?
Which was when I first started learning about fracking. I was in grad school, and I did a media ecology study on fracking in Western Pennsylvania and how it was being portrayed in the media,
right?
And how all these violations were not being reported. How the proper homework was never done on the safety of this, and just all kinds of stuff. And, even in a lot of the areas, I mean, they were able to pass a drilling ban in my parents' neighborhood. And it was because they had this progressive mayor who fought tooth and nail for it, and he got it done. And he was actually a friend of mine who, sadly no longer with us. He passed a few years back. But, I mean, it can be done. You can do that locally. And it is so criminally sad when you don't have the establishment behind you, when they're still, and they're Democrats too.
Right.
I mean, Pennsylvania is not the most progressive state in the world. I mean, there is a heavy Democrat majority there, but it's not seen the same as California. Meanwhile, they were able to get it done locally. And I think it's, I mean, we really need to have a complete ground up overhaul of all this.
Yeah. And Ron, if I can bring this up now, there's one thing, I talk about on my website, one policy that we haven't brought up yet that I want to say, because to get here, we have to change who can get elected and who can vote, right? Expanding our democracy is about having a representative democracy, of making sure what you and I are saying, what my students want, what community activists want, what Black Lives Matter want is actually being done. That is what representative means. And to get that, there's a couple of things we can do in California. So LA City Council has public financing of elections. It makes it a little easier to run. Granted, there's a lot of independent expenditures that are spent, which is awful. That's another thing we need to change in terms of campaign finance in our state. But one thing we can at least do for state politics is we have no sort of public financing option. So if you are a grassroots candidate trying to do things right, not taking this money, it's really the money you raise, and which makes it difficult. So I'm in favor of, publicly funding our elections to allow, my students to run one day, to allow someone who's actually been affected by homeless to be able to run one day, and actually have a legitimate chance of winning. It's not that they can't run, right? But it's that there's so many roadblocks. In fact, I want to point this out. When I was getting on the ballot for the primary, there was another young man, 21 Black man who grew up in Watts, who was, in my race. And I was happy that he was there. It's a democracy. Anyone should be able to run. But he had so many barriers in terms of financial for getting his name even on the ballot that he had to drop out. And he's a smart young man, and so it's just, we need to really make sure we support candidates that are running. I also believe in proportional representation. Ranked choice voting is a great way to do that. Our state went to Bernie Sanders, and our voices, it's clear that our establishment people in office right now are not representing what California wants. I mean, and that's, so I believe in that. One thing I wanted was drastically expand voting access too, which is, allowing 16, 17-year-olds to vote in all local elections, including, school board, state, and also allow undocumented immigrants to vote. I know this sounds radical, but they are contributing a great part to our economy. A lot of them are paying their taxes and everything. And so I think they deserve healthcare. They deserve to have a voice in a place they've called home. I mean,
I'm with you 110%.
yeah,
And I sometimes get flack for that, but I've been saying it for a long time. The voting age should be 16.
yeah,
If you can drive a car, you can cast a ballot.
right.
And you know what? You're going to be voting for the wars they're going to try to send you to in 2 years. So, you should have a say. And one of the things that really made me more passionate about that was, I used to perform at a lot of colleges. I still do, every now and again, usually on an election year. I did a couple virtual ones this fall. But, and I would say, who's going to go out and vote? Right. And the students who didn't raise their hand, I would ask, I was like, oh, why aren't you going to vote? And the answer 100% of the time was, I'm not old enough. And it's like, so here are civically engaged students who are concerned about the future of the world, yet they're not 18 yet, so they can't vote. By the time they are 18, they can be sent off to war. Right. They should have a freaking say in that. They should have a say in that. They should be able to vote when they're 16.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm with you on undocumented immigrants too. They should absolutely have the right to vote. I mean, and prisoners should have the right to vote.
I was going to say that was the next thing, because that's a form of voter suppression. I mean, we see what happened with Stacey Abrams in Georgia, where, they were directly, suppressing the vote by making it hard to get to the voting centers, have really long lines, closing down voting centers. There's many forms of voter suppression that are to keep folks of color, keep lower income folks out from the process. And I think in addition to doing that, we need to abolish the electoral college. We haven't said that yet, but that needs to be done 100%. But we also need to remove these systemic barriers that maybe someone might not see as a direct barrier to voting, but that is, right? Anything that's not allowing someone to vote is a barrier, period.
I mean, look at what they did in Louisville.
Yeah.
I mean, what they did in Louisville, I mean, you literally saw the footage of people banging on the doors. And by the way, this was a Democratic election, by the way. This was the pro-Trump Democrat versus the actual progressive, where they screwed over the progressive. And chances are that pro-Trump Democrat's going to lose to Mitch McConnell. That's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But, I mean, in the city centers, they had people banging on the doors to vote. It's by design. It's by design they do it. And at the end of the day, I think it's all about preventing any type of systemic change. That's why, generally speaking, the Democrats do a lot of the shenanigans in the primaries to make sure the progressives get squashed out. And then in the general, the Republicans do more of the shenanigans to make sure that Wall Street, we don't even have to have the person who has to give lip service against Wall Street. We can just have the straight up, no holds bar Wall Street candidate. That's what they do. And it's by design.
Yeah. And I want to point this out too. Like, I am kind of sick of, like, again, this is going to be controversial, but I think your audience is controversial, so it's okay. But the fact that, right now with the Biden and Kamala Harris ticket, they have to play it safe and say, oh, we are for fracking, we're all these things. And their argument is they're trying to get the swing states and all that. But at the end of the day, when you look at a lot of the policies that we want, the majority of Americans believe in it. I mean, and so I don't even know, they're just playing for what, like a really select voter population. It just, I don't know, it just boggles my mind. It's like so twisted that they have to, I don't even know what they're doing. I can't even really define it, but I just feel like they're not speaking to what people really want.
They're what the establishment let through.
Yeah.
They're what the establishment permitted. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, if your first concern was winning and you really wanted to win, why would you screw over the guy who had an entire movement behind him, not once, but twice?
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. And they can say, like, oh, McGovern this, McGovern that. Like, no. Because look at where public opinion is. Look at all the polls that had Bernie beaten Trump twice. Look at all the 70% of Americans want Medicare for all. Most of the Americans in this swing state, they don't like fracking. They want long-term solutions. They want jobs, but they want sustainable, clean jobs. They don't want to go into a mine the way people did 50 years ago.
The people who are working those jobs are the most at risk. So anyone that says we're taking away jobs, those are the people. Like, if you told a person working in something in fracking or in mining that we can offer you, over a few years, we're going to give you training and offer you this job where you're safer. Of course they'll take it. If it's
They're
a
going to
good
take it.
job, they're going to take it. Why? It's not their choice. They're doing it because that's the only job that we're paying. We're paying to add more to oil drilling and this. Of course there are going to be jobs there because that's what they're doing. But if you really change the infrastructure and offer someone a safer job, it's a no-brainer. Of course
it's a no-brainer. And you know what else will be a difference too? In most cases, not in every single case, but in a lot of cases, it's a permanent job.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of those fracking, they're temporary jobs. Because I saw it. I traveled the country 45 weeks a year for a long time. I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. I've seen it. First of all, if you ever see a fracking site close up, it is a scary sight.
Yeah.
It is. I don't see how any reasonable person would look at this and be like, yeah, this is fine. We should be doing this.
Yeah.
It is creepy. It is creepy. It looks dangerous beyond comprehension. It's like, no, we should not be doing this. We should not be doing this. Mm-hmm. But a lot of these jobs are temporary and then they just move on. Like people just move on to a different town. It's completely just a scam above scams.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Joe Biden is full-throatedly for it. He promises he won't ban it. That's the one thing he's thorough on. I won't ban it. I won't ban it.
I know. It's ridiculous. I think that's why I'm running and we have a lot of other, good local politicians running because, it won't be easy, even if we get into office. But I think if we can really create a system where we hold the roots of the problems accountable, right? The money in politics, and we pass laws to change that, pass laws to make it easier for folks to run, expand voting, call out our colleagues that are doing the wrong thing and not, I think that can really change the system. And I have hope in that. I really, really do. And I wouldn't be running if I didn't believe in that we can make a change through our policy. I really wouldn't be,
Yeah. Well, and hey, things like ranked choice voting, mm-hmm. things like, and if we do have an alternative electorally, then, folks like you will have an option to either build alliances or you can always just switch teams. So, expanding the electorate, ranked choice voting, that will really help the cause for true systemic change.
Yeah, and I
progressive change.
Yes, and we have some great third parties right now, but I feel like in the system we have, unfortunately, it's hard for them, right? Yeah. To really get a seat at the table. And I don't think that's fair. And I think, Charles Booker may have won in a ranked choice voting type of primary election. You never know. And so, I just think it gives voice to just more folks. That's all it is. That's what it's about, So it's about vote. You can actually vote for a candidate you believe in and that candidate actually has a shot. We don't have that right now, right? Right now people are being shamed for voting third party because in a swing state or something like that. But it's because our system doesn't allow, for that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's change it.
So let's go to a couple super chats here. Christopher Walker, what's up, buddy? I hope you're doing well. Kamala laughed on 60 Minutes when called a socialist. Someone called her a socialist? Okay. And then you say, I will never vote for neolibs that will not give us Medicare for all and a high-speed rail when it can be done. I feel your pain, buddy. I hope you're doing well, Chris. I hope it's safe where you're at. Because I know you're a Californian and I know there were some fires kind of close to you. So I hope everything's going well. Dan L. Values, thank you, buddy. Thank you very much for your super chat contribution. I hope you are doing awesome. Gina, what's up, Gina? I hope everything is going well. I'm an aerospace engineer. This is Gina talking, not me. I was in engineering. I'm an aerospace engineer. We are still designing the most complex planes ever, and we haven't been in a dogfight since World War II. We fund the military, invest in education and green energy.
Yes, I love that.
I'm with you, Gina. 100%. I'm with you, Gina. I wish you were working on climate. I wish they would have you work on climate change. That's where we need you.
Yeah.
Amen. And then, Gina, you also say Cali should have public internet and its own Green New Deal. I wanted to add, so what is your, obviously environmental policies are a big part of what you're all about, but what about as far as localized Green New Deals?
Right.
I know it's if every city in the country did that, we would, we still need change to happen at the top too, because if nothing's done about the major polluters of the world, we're still kind of screwed. But if every community had their own Green New Deal, doing as much as they feasibly could as a community, that's not nothing.
No, it's not. No, and I believe in that community-based politics, actually, and I think it has to happen locally. There are, I think Culver City had a great transformation lately in how they're addressing climate change. I also know, like, Anaheim's doing great things with water and recapturing their water. And Northern California as well. Northern California as well is has local Green New Deals, or at least candidates running, who have drafted like really elaborate policies. Northern California is a little more advanced in terms of where LA County is. But I absolutely think you're right, Ron. We need to achieve this locally. Part of the reason I was running for state, state is still local. It's not
Right.
local, right, but I want to be that type of candidate. I want to be at, in the communities and holding these city officials accountable, because I think that's that's what we should do. That's how it has to happen. Even if we had a national Green New Deal passed, right? I mean, the issue here is implementation and accountability, right? Making sure that it's happening at the community level. That is where it's happening. And so, if we think about, this seems unrelated, but if you think about even like the issue of rent control, right? California, perfect example of this local, kind of organizing local issues, local changes that have to happen in policy. We had a universal rent control law passed, but it doesn't unfortunately mean much, because we have still local cities that are raising rents because of two laws that weren't overturned by our Democratic supermajority at the state level, called Costa Hawkins and Ellis. And so I just want to shout out Prop 21, right, which is really important to vote yes, because it'll give that local, power to really enact rent control. But yeah, this is like a multifold issue, Ron, right? Like I think the way I envision it is we need laws passed at federal, state, and local level, but we also need folks working together. For example, my congressional rep is Nanette Barragan, right? And we will have, in my district, there are city officials, there are neighborhood councils, there's also congressional rep. I want to work together with all of them. My federal representative, the local representative. Right now, that's not really happening. It's not happening from what I see, at least in my district. I don't see different levels of government working together for the benefit of the people. I don't see that happening. Correct me if I'm wrong, wrong, but I don't see that happening. And I think that has to happen if we're addressing this with the urgency that needs to happen. And it's the only way we're going to hold local communities accountable to actually implementing the laws that pass, whether it's on the statewide level, and that's why I think one thing that I want to do is to really do audits as a state rep of, school boards, of city councils, how the money's being spent, and just be completely transparent. So I think that's definitely not happening right now. It's just more that we're concerned about our political relationships, and so we won't hold, for example, a local city official accountable, right? At the loss of the people that are struggling from this law not being implemented. That's what I see happening. So,
absolutely. When you see local politics where it's just a bunch of developers,
right,
trying to make it easier for them to have your way, you realize, okay, this is why we never really get anything for the people.
Mm-hmm.
They got in, but it also shows you the other big lesson, though, is that there's a ton of power locally. There's a ton of power locally. These rich, here in Pasadena, our mayor is basically a big real estate developer who's also the mayor. He doesn't need that mayoral salary. He doesn't need that money. He's doing it because he knows, hey, it's gonna be easier for me and my cronies to do what we want in this community if I'm mayor. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So Christopher Walker, what's up again, buddy? There is also many foreign rich people that come to the U.S. to exploit the fall of this nation and the crony tax system that continues to favor the rich. Yeah, that does happen. People buy up properties and stuff like that, and they're not even domestic. And yeah, oligarchy is a international venture, folks. Chris Kelly, what's up? Thank you for the clapping cat. Is that a cat or yeah? It looks like a cat. Thank you for the clapping cat. I love the clapping cat. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Chris again. Thank you, Chris. Thank you guys so much for your super chat contributions. You keep Get Your News On with Ron up on the air. And Fatima, tell everybody where they can find you and where they can support you. And if they do live in Assembly District 64, I encourage all of them to vote for you.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. This has been so fun. My website is fatimafораssembly.com, FATIMAFOR assembly.com. On there, you can, donate, you can volunteer. Our biggest need right now, it's just like less than a week left, is give something that you can. So whether it's that you can't phone bank because of time, you can donate, go ahead and donate. My opponent, he just had an independent expenditure filed and literally funded by the oil company. So we are trying to fight him with these grassroots donations so we can get out our last mailer, up our text banking efforts this last week. All of that takes money. So please do donate. If you can't donate, I would say sign up for one phone bank. So give your time or give your money, more than me, don't do it for me, do it for my community, do it for communities like mine all over California. And I think this is for me about a movement, and it's not just about me, it's about making sure we have justice and equity. So yeah, go to my website, FatimaForAssembly.com, to do either of those things, donate or volunteer. And I want to shout out, we're going to have some fun hosts for a few of our phone banks. Yasser Lester is going to host one. Ron, if you want to host one, I was going to ask you too. You're welcome to host a phone bank, before election day.
Okay, drop me an email. Let me know the details.
Okay.
Let
Get
me
your
know how it
supporters
works.
on there. Yeah. Just to get a higher turnout, because we need to fill something like 200 or 300 shifts this last week. So trying to get all those met. So yeah, but thank you to everyone watching. Thanks to you, Ron, for giving me this platform to talk about the issues that really matter.
Thank you for doing this. And again, that website is FatimaForAssembly.com, and it's 4 spelled FOR.
Yes.
Follow her on Twitter with the number 4. But yeah, go to that website, find out who you can help, and drop me an email. If time's a little sparse after the election, but if I got the time, I'll definitely
Sounds good. All right, yeah.
For you.
And no
Thank
pressure,
you so much for doing that. Well,
I was gonna say no pressure if you're busy, and I won't think, but I just wanted to see if you can. Yeah, but thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Ron. Thank you.
Absolutely. FatimaForAssembly.com. Folks, we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same channel, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. In the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy says meow. That's my cat, Fatima. That's my cat. She's asleep on the couch. But Lucy says meow, and I say peace. Peace.